Clinic. And again today, we've got something really super special because it's the 12-month anniversary of Margaret Dos Santos as our expert mentor. If you've been and seen our Ask a Mentor sessions, you'll have seen Margaret. Hi, Margaret. How are you going?
Hi, Suzanne. I'm so unwell and I'm so excited about today. I put on my sparkly jacket just for
Yeah.
just to celebrate our anniversary, but I have thoroughly enjoyed this past year. Some of it has come quite easy for me, and obviously some other things, some other topics I've had to research myself, provide some input in terms of experience, and that's been quite eye-opening for me as well.
It sure has. And I know we've talked about this as we've gone through with some of those Ask a Mentor questions. And for those of you watching, please subscribe to the channel and you'll find a whole raft of Margaret's Ask a Mentor sessions. And there's around 22 sessions in the last 12 months. So it's been very good. You can also go to the website and ask a mentor question, and you can do it anonymously, and Margaret and myself will answer it. But it has been interesting, Margaret, because there's been a couple that have been out of the left field for us, hasn't it?
There has.
Like if you're out there and you're thinking, I'm making up those questions, I'm actually not.
Mm.
There are some questions out of left field. One of them for me, and I'll just tell you this and then I'll ask you what yours might be, was the solo project manager. Remember that one? It was a while
Yes.
ago, and that person was not a project manager, but they were pulled out of what they were doing normally and being asked, and they were struggling. What was did you have a favourite one in that sort of way?
Yeah, I think my favorite one has been the RACI, and also I think when it was an impromptu recording that we did at a club, and it was
Yep.
about where do I start?
Yes.
And I think, and when I mentioned that we started the business case, and I think those two have been my favorite. I think because it starts with governance, it starts with structure, and I think that when you have that, then it carries you through to the rest of the program or the rest of the project. And one of the mentor questions was, I feel like I don't have any say in what gets done or in terms of, how I control this, because people are just off doing their own thing. And that's where the RACI comes in, right? Because it tells you that you're this and you're that. And so if I'm a project manager, then this is how we're going to do it. This is how it's going to be done. Or there's a bit of structure there, and basically, some respect in terms of that person's position, not being ignored. So I think some of the questions have been eye openers.
Yeah.
And and those two certainly have been my favorite, I have to say.
I think you'll probably agree with me in over the year that we've done all of these things, there's been some really surprising ones. And you sort of alluded to this, where we've both had to go and research stuff.
Yes.
And I know you've talked about this before with me, but the gamification, that was unbelievable. I really had no idea about that.
Me neither. And until I researched it, and also there'd been some posts about that that topic as well. I think that also was an eye opener in terms of how we could gamify projects and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know whether this is something that is more known, say, coming out of an agile environment or maybe a younger demographic. But I asked quite a few younger project managers, and I'm talking, late 20s, 30s, because they're younger than me by quite a bit, people. And most of them had not heard of it either. So it's a thing that is maybe gaining some traction, although I've not heard too much about it since. And the other one was that I really liked was, it was a while ago, it was September 2025, I think, decoding project success beyond the Gantt chart. So That one was interesting because often I've found that organisations think about project management as a Gantt chart or a schedule, but this really looked past that. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, so, and it's not just about the Gantt, it's also about providing benefits to the business and, the sponsor and the project owners, or who's actually gaining the benefit. So, I mean, that's definitely something that is beyond the Gantt chart. It's not just linear. There is other things that come into play. It's about stakeholder engagement, managing the budget, and so all of those things are part and parcel of whether a project or program is successful.
Yeah. We did quite a few about what a project manager is and what a project manager isn't. We also looked at the difference between a change manager and a project manager. So that was a good one, because I still think there's a fair bit of misunderstanding around that. And we also talked a bit about recruitment in a couple of the sessions. I'm not sure that they were actually Ask a Mentors. They may have been just sessions that you've done. I'm just looking. Why can't I get a decision on this? This was definitely an Ask a Mentor. And that was around hidden snags and getting decisions from a sponsor, particularly. I think that was that particular question.
Yeah. And I mean, and I have mentioned this before about, absentee landlord. I mean, that I see that sponsors not wanting to make decisions, or they're evading their responsibility, or sometimes they don't even know what their role is in part of this.
Very
and
common.
This is very common.
Yep.
And I've been in organisations where they've had to have training for sponsors to understand what their role is. Again, that goes right back to the RACI.
Right back to the RACI.
What is their responsibility? What is their accountability?
Yep.
It's not all on the project manager. The project manager is there to deliver what they have set out to agree as per the business case. And so, it's so common. It's not funny. And
it's not fun, and it can be a risk. Unfortunately, the sponsor and their lack of knowledge of how to support the project manager can be a risk to your project.
That's right. And you know what? It's actually one of the top 10 reasons why projects fail.
There you are.
It's
Yep.
Not having decisions made by the sponsor. And in fact, when I've been signing contracts or getting contracts signed by the software development team, or when you're purchasing software or getting agreements done, one of the things is that if there's delays in terms of decision making, however many days, then they get an extension of that on the timeline, because quite often it's the decision makers that can't make a decision, or that take ages to make the decision, that then delays the timeline in terms of the delivery of the software vendor being able to deliver something if they're developing something.
That's something we probably should look at in another session, but that decision-making hierarchy, and we used to have a thing in project management. I'm not sure if it gets used much now. It's probably automated in a couple of the systems, but it was the escalation path. So where am I going to escalate it to? And I have taken over a project in the past where there was about 6 people, and I went, nah, that's just not going to fly. But I don't know that a lot of project managers do that little bit of due diligence and ask themselves, is this really going to work in real time, like you're saying? Because it can add days and weeks, really. And sometimes, I hate to tell you people out there, but sometimes no decision is made and projects can flounder for 12 months. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but I've seen it. Not projects I've been managing, but I've seen it. So if you're just tuning in, please subscribe to the program. We're talking to Margaret Dos Santos because Margaret has been 12 months giving her time freely to the Project Manager Clinic to be our expert mentor. And not only has she talked to us, she has also prepared an enormous amount of fantastic PowerPoint slides that you can download and access on the website. Now, Margaret is often called the networking queen by some people who know her, but that is just not, that's a sort of undersell, because Margaret's got 20 years plus in project and program management across a breadth of industries. And one of the few people that I have found, Margaret, and I've been around for a long time, who actually knows what tool and technique can be applied or should be applied and how it should be applied to a project issue. So I'm just going to flip the script just slightly and talk a little bit about, if you can talk a little bit about that that networking one that we talked about, and that was like really highlighting your skills as a networker, which translates in project management land very much into stakeholder management, because you've still got to be able to do that. So it's one of my favourites, and we only did this in April, but transforming casual coffee chats into high impact strategic career partnerships. One of my favourites, Margaret. Can you talk a little bit about that one?
Yeah, so it's talking about the different types of networks that you have, and some of them are hot, like some of them are close contacts, and some of them are like third degree contacts, especially when you're looking at LinkedIn. You've
Yeah.
got someone that you know that you're connected with, but then you've got second and third level contacts with them. Also, people that comment on your posts, if you put in posts in LinkedIn, then they may be second or third level degree contacts. And so those are important contacts, because these contacts that are further away usually are the ones that have, it's like a funnel. And they've got and you're going to the width of your funnel, then they may have other contacts that you may not be aware of that potentially have roles that are, that you may be looking for example, or, different networking or opportunities for business or, career minded type of things. So
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about, the surprising questions, but were you surprised to learn something like that? I know we talked about having to go and research things, but we sort of talked a bit about the gamifications. Oh, wow, that I didn't think of. But was there something that you thought, wow, I really learnt from that question, and I could do this a different way in the future, or wow, I did it right, or was there anything?
I think so. I mean, recently we did the fractional recruitment, and
Mm,
I think that that's actually more advanced in, say, the US, where they have, fractional recruiters already and databases that, have these
yeah.
skilled workers
Mm,
and that are doing fractional work, and having the subscription ability for, say, clients such as companies that want to access these fractional, specialty personnel. I think that that was an eye opener for me, because I probably never had heard that this was a thing where they could subscribe
yeah.
to recruiters and, then pay for them like a subscription service and have this, ongoing fractional work coming
Right.
in, because it and like we said, it saves on, the sick leave, I guess annual leave and
Yeah.
all this other stuff that
Payroll
gets
tax, all
accumulated,
that. Yeah.
all that stuff that gets
Yeah.
accumulated, and it saves the company that, and they just probably need high-end skill set for a very short time, and they don't have to employ someone with all these other things. So that,
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense, and it's amazing how it's come out of the COVID times, and because people wanted to do different things, learn different things as well. They wanted to experience different skill sets, different
Mm,
organizations, different industries. So for them, it was actually another opportunity for them to gain all of these skills and not necessarily commit themselves to a particular organization. So
mm. Yeah,
It was
exactly.
it's interesting how out of adversity, comes greatness. And I think that that's just another example of something that's come out of something that people thought were adversity, an adversity type
Yeah.
situation, and how this new thing has come out, which is this fractional recruitment.
Yeah. Which is a change to not only our industry in project management, but also to the recruitment industry. And hopefully, we're going to find a recruiter out there who's going to help talk about this in the next month or so. But, Margaret, from what you know, and you've been in project management for a fair while, as I said, are you seeing different trends now after going through this 12 months of the questions that we've done?
I would have to say absolutely, because AI has also transformed a lot of the
Yeah.
role that the project manager does, and it's kind of morphing into more of change management. And we did talk about this topic,
Yes.
how the project manager role is changing and how it's becoming more like that.
Yep.
And also fractional recruitment has sprung up, so it's becoming more like specialty, going into an organization for that specialty expertise and then leaving and going into another organization. So it has changed somewhat in that, and also companies are now just, I think, hiring people for a particular project and then letting them go because they haven't got, for example, a PMO or an ongoing
Yeah.
project group for ongoing pipeline of projects. It may
Yeah.
be like a transformation project for the company, and then that's it. But the thing is, companies are transforming all the time. So, it's AI one day, it's cloud the next, it's now we're seeing data centers spring up because of AI.
Yeah.
A lot of data center companies are starting, and a lot of data centers are now being created. And so,
Wow.
whereas,
Okay.
yeah, that's become a thing because
Mm.
AI has made a lot of this data center need because of data and because of being a
Of
sovereignty,
course.
being in the country
Yep.
and being on the ground, especially governments. I mean, they're not going to have their data be stored, offshore.
Exactly.
They're going to make
Exactly.
sure that the data centers and the data is stored on the ground. And so now I'm seeing it a lot. Data centers springing up, new ones.
Right. I
Yeah,
remember when all of that happened early on, way back in the early 2000s or late 90s, I guess.
yeah.
Um, and as you're talking about all of that, I'm starting to think, well, when I came up, which is probably about 30 years in project management, there were things that we'd never done before. They were just never done. So there was no idea of this specialty of, you're in ERP or you're in this or you're in that,
Mm,
because we just had to do it, like voice
mm.
activated response, software, which I did one of the first ones of those. So you could pay your bill over the phone. We didn't have those. So, we had to work out how to do it,
Mm,
which is very interesting because I think that now plays into a difference in recruiting for people of mature age. So the people that have got that raft of experience, maybe
mm,
not as much as me even, but as long as me. But because it was a different way that we worked, the environment was different, it wasn't as mature as it is now. And you were sort of alluding to this before we started to talk on here, Margaret, about the breadth that we used to have as project management, whereas now um, we've got to try and refine those skills down to a particular area or two particular areas. And we did talk a fair bit about recruitment in some of these sessions, but we didn't necessarily talk about new trends like that.
that is definitely a new trend. So it's really funny because as cloud was coming up, a lot of the data centers were shrinking and a lot of the
Yes.
companies were moving to the cloud,
Yep.
which has been an ongoing trend for a few years now. But now, because AI has come up, it's now bringing that trend of data centers back and sovereignty and having that
Yeah.
on the ground and onshore, not offshore.
Yeah.
And so that's bringing a lot of the infrastructure, I guess, back into.
True. They often say the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Oh,
But
I haven't heard that,
yeah,
but that's probably true.
yeah, can be quite cyclical in the
Yeah.
change. So that's interesting. So I'm going to start wrapping up now, Margaret, so we can keep this reasonably short. But in all of the 12 months, it's been fantastic to have you, as I've said a couple of times, and get your focus on things because you're very talented at, focusing in on the problems. But what sort of subjects do you think we're going to see in the next 12 months from the Ask a Mentor?
I think maybe some of the questions that might come up, maybe, is project management dead? Will we need any project managers going forward?
Yeah,
I'll just get AI or not need it. I think there's always going to be a need for a human in the loop, and also
yeah,
to make sure that it's governed properly. And the AI will only know as much as the data that's in it, and
yeah,
sometimes it may not be accurate. You've always got to check it anyway. So that might be some of the questions. And I think a lot of the questions that might come up may be people-focused ones, like I've got an issue with, a stakeholder
yes,
and trying to deal with that. And I think it's going to be more like that, people-focused issues. And then maybe transferable skills into, because a lot of, say, technology related project managers have been software focused, there may be a need for project managers to be hardware focused in working in data centers. So that's going to be a
yeah,
totally different
yeah,
sort of skill set that people are going to need. And of course, construction project managers are always going to be needed. I think that's,
yes. AI can't do that probably.
AI can't do that.
No,
And, I think, and also the agile in a lot of the construction, maybe, internally when it's called soft construction, when you're actually doing fit outs and things like that.
yeah,
I think a lot of that may be able to be done agile, but when you're actually, doing a building, it's hard to lease out, say, the bottom floor when you're still doing the top floor. It's very
yeah,
much it needs to be all complete and fit for purpose, fit for use, fit for consumption
mm,
before, people start to use, so the building, for example, start to, come in and start to use it. So I think I think a project management, I always see that will still play a big role in construction. Yeah.
yeah. Look, I heard somebody say the other day, it was probably on LinkedIn, I probably read it, not heard it. I don't know whether they actually said AI can do the strategy, but they can't do the execution. So that was where the difference was. Or AI can build a plan, but AI can't necessarily execute the plan. And in a perfect world, AI probably could. You think about the car industry, and they have all those robots that put all the cars together
Mm.
because it's a perfect environment made especially for AI. But the humans in an organization are not made specifically for AI. So I think you're right. We're going to probably see more questions coming to us this year about how do I deal with this person or this person issue
Mm.
or this team issue. Or expectations probably going to be a big one too around maybe sponsors saying, well, we'll just get AI to do that or just get AI to do that.
Mm.
And then to be able to, for the project manager, have that argument about, and I don't mean fighting argument, I mean construct an argument that says, well, that won't work because of these reasons or this will work in part. So that could be a thing. Do you think, Margaret, and this is my last question before we sum up, but do you think that project management itself and our framework and our methodology has to change, be it something added to it or taken away because of all of this specialisation, or do you think we're still on the right track with project management?
Do you know what? I think the framework is always going to be agnostic, regardless of whether it's an ERP
Yeah,
or, a CRM or a different type of system. You're always going to be able to, say for websites, be able to run those agile, because you're going to be able to have maybe screen one, and then that can be live and that can be used, and
yeah,
be able to use it. But with CRMs or with with ERPs, a lot of that and a lot of that is interconnected, say with a bank or with other third parties, and that really needs to be working end to end before it can be public or it can be
yeah,
used.
yeah,
I mean, you can't have something, be able to purchase a product on or be able to use a certain thing, and it's not connected to, say, the profit and loss if it's an ERP system, or the back end financial
yeah.
system, SAP or whatever, or some other system it's connected to.
Mm,
So I think that you will always find that those systems will, not be able to be, I guess, used separately. The interconnectedness needs to be working wholeheartedly before it can, be used as a sum of everything.
mm.
So
Okay,
yeah.
so we're probably, I mean, I often look at the project management methodology, from the PMI and think,
Mhm.
there's things I can pick and choose from that depending on the size of my project. And I know
Yes.
some organisations have done that, they've scaled it down.
Yes.
So I think what you're saying, and this is what I think as well, that as it sits and as it stands now, and I usually refer to the PMBOK, but basically project management framework is still valuable today,
Yes.
and we really don't need to change it at the moment. And I think it's flexible enough that we can, like I said, we can pick and choose, making sure that, the project, we have got the right tools and techniques in there. Um, but you can scale it. And
Mm.
certainly for those big projects that you talked about, you pretty much need the entire methodology. So thank you so much, Margaret, for today. Have you got anything that you want to add as we sum up?
I would have to say that I have thoroughly enjoyed working on the PM clinic and working as a mentor. I think that some of the things that I have brought, I have hoped that it's helped the community at large, but
Yeah,
also I've actually learned some things myself, and along the way, and for different things like gamification, fractional
yeah,
recruitment, things like that. So it's been a learning for me as well, which is, what you hope to gain out of mentoring, is that
mm,
it's a two-way street. You provide guidance, but you also get some learnings as well. So that's
yeah,
been interesting.
yeah, exactly. Well, it's been absolutely fantastic, Margaret, and I've made certainly a great friend in the process. So I've really appreciated it. If you're out there and you're watching, there will be details in the description below about Margaret, how to contact Margaret or myself, and with a link off to the blog so that you can actually see a list of everything that Margaret has participated in the past year. It's been fantastic. And remember, if you've got a project problem out there and you can't work out what's wrong, come to the clinic because we can help you. Thanks so much, Margaret. Have a great day,
Thanks,
a great project
Suzanne.
day,
You've been
everyone.
wonderful.